Uh, the intro audio is not working. Anyway, this is Andrew, everybody. I'm going to cue us in. Still have these technical difficulties going on. All right, so this is Andrew, as always, and then I am joined once again with Ben Wan, our senior Batman correspondent. What's going on, Ben?
What's up, man? I brought my same Batman shirt. This might be
Oh,
my
shit.
my Superhouse Batman correspondent shirt from now on.
Nice. I am wearing a Friday the 13th NES shirt. uh, yeah, I always thought this shirt was pretty
Just
cool.
in time for our Joker, our Joker discussion.
Yeah, why not? All right, so we're going to be talking about the Joker trailer, our reactions to that, and
hmm
also we will be going over. Oh, Ben will be going over the different Joker origins and more of a deep dive into the Joker himself. Before that, we're going to do a little sneak preview of our thoughts on Shazam, just real quick. Um, less than 5 minutes,
hmm
less than 3 minutes maybe. But
Sure.
Ben, what'd you think of Shazam? We both
I'll
saw
go
it
real quick.
together.
Yeah, we did, and we both, well, not to give it away, but I'd say we both pretty much loved it. I mean, it was there's so much that's not in the marketing that I was surprised. The first 10 minutes is not what you expect at all. And I think I'm not somebody who is like up to Shazam comics as I am in Batman comics, but from what I know, I mean, I think they pretty much nailed it in a way that I think we haven't seen or that DC wasn't necessarily known for until sort of these recent movies and this new regime where they um, they're making you care a lot about the characters. There's a lot of heart to this movie, a lot more heart than I expected. I mean, would you agree?
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, I love the film. I give it basically a 10 out of 10. Ben and I have gone over some minor, very minor issues
Mm-hmm.
that might have been with the film, but I mean, God, it's like super nitpicky stuff that we'll get in with the deep dive. The rest of Superhouse has not
Right.
seen the film yet. I don't think just yet. Maddie is actually more of a horror dude, doesn't know Shazam that much, so he saw Pet Cemetery first. But yeah, I loved it.
Poor
There's
man.
yeah, he did not like Pet Cemetery, the new one, that much. But anyways, I thought it
hmm
was great. Not much wrong with it, and we'll deep dive into that
hmm
more later. But so now,
Sure.
Ben, so let's do. You want to do the trailer Joker origins first, or what? I mean, trailer the
Uh,
Joker deep dive for that, or what?
well, let's go. Yeah, let's go into the trailer first because that's what technically two Joker trailers hit this week.
Oh yeah, yeah.
One for the Gotham finale for that Joker, and the big one being the Walking Phoenix one. So I mean, I can briefly cover the Gotham Joker one, um, but long story short, it's released. It's a few seconds long. It might feel a little confusing to those who aren't in the know, but this version of Joker is bald and is very much scarred from the chemical bath that he got a few episodes ago in season 5. And I think the big reason for that is because, according to the actor Cameron Monaghan, there's some rights issue where they're not allowed to call him Joker and they're not allowed to give him green hair.
What in Gotham?
Yeah, yeah.
That is the
So
weirdest thing. I actually did not know that part of it.
yeah, so that's why he looks like that. I think they did what they could because honestly, if you gave him a green wig, because that's I wanted to do a whole Black Panther get this man a wig meme with this.
Right.
Um, because I'm just like he would actually kind of look like the Arkham Joker, a little uglier, but he would look like the Arkham Joker if he just had the green hair. We just
Right.
gave him the wig. But if they're under that restriction, there's only so much they could do. Um, to be honest, I mean, I'll dive a little deeper into the Gotham version of Joker because we're diving into his origins, and that's a big part of the show. But Cameron Monaghan may be my favorite of the
Wow.
live Joker so far, just because he technically has played two of them. One of them is like practically the Mark Hamill type Joker brought to life, and the other one is kind of his own different version of it. And I'm not really sure what to expect in this version, where it's I'm pretty sure it's a future version of one of the characters he played, but I'm just gonna have to wait and see the finale and see how that turns out. But I'm excited for it just to see 5 seasons of the show, and finally we get to see this version of Batman and this version of Joker face off. So I'm excited.
It's going to be full on Batman in this show.
Yeah, there was a poster. I don't know if you saw the poster. There's a poster
Yeah,
of the bat.
it's from the back of his
From
cowl, right?
Yeah, from the back of it, but they did
Yeah.
confirm the Batsuit is in it. So I'm grateful for that because I don't know, I don't remember if you said that you watched Smallville, but that was 10 seasons only for Tom Welling's Clark Kent to turn into a CGI cartoon,
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah. Right.
that was the worst. I can't believe that there's no way they would get away with that these days.
Right,
So
right.
I'm grateful there's at least a suit. I'm hopeful that he's not just in like the last shot of the show, but we'll have to see. April 25th is the finale.
Oh my God, I gotta tell you, honestly, I've been out of the loop on Gotham, man. Maddie seems to love it. There was, I mean, I don't know. I didn't hate it, but
There,
it
I mean,
wasn't at the top of my priority list. You know, you're the
right.
senior Batman correspondent, so I'm glad you're keeping tabs on all that. But I don't
Right.
know.
Yeah. I mean, it's an adaptation of Batman, so of course I'm going to watch it. But
Yeah.
I think it evolved. It got better over time. It does have fantastic. It's a weird mix of some fantastic versions of the characters
Right.
and some like really strange. I don't know why you did this with the characters sort of thing.
Right.
Uh, so I mean, we can get into that if we ever do a Gotham episode when the finale gets here. But I'm excited for it. I think they did. I think they have a great actor playing Joker, and we'll see what happens.
Cool. I did see the trailer. It did seem like he was kind of pulling from Jack Nicholson a little bit, though. I think.
A little bit. He's kind of pulled from each one. It feels
Mm-hmm.
like at least Jack and Heath. I definitely don't see any Leto in there, but
No,
at
no,
least.
no.
Um, but it looks like he won't be the only Joker origin we see this year because we on a couple days later we saw the Joaquin Phoenix trailer, the
Right,
trailer
right,
for the
right.
Joaquin Phoenix movie. So I mean, I guess I'll start, but I
Yeah.
mean, I've always thought this movie was an interesting idea. I was picturing something a little bit more along the lines of the Rise of Joker, like Goodfellas style, in terms of like a mob movie or a criminal career movie. Than this is a little bit more along the lines of Taxi Driver and King of Comedy,
Right,
of
right.
like a broken down man who sort of descends into madness, sort of thing. And it's disturbing and it's weird, and I'm not really sure what they're doing with certain canon stuff. But I think the biggest thing people are excited for is to see Joaquin Phoenix in the role, and I personally can't wait. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely excited. It's always good to kind of like see. I mean, we do like the villain, and we've been following a lot of like anti-hero type of characters, like
Mhm.
Venom and stuff. Deadpool's all he's been a straight up villain in some incarnations. But this, I guess, is going to be our first real, go around with an actual like following the bad guy, right?
Mhm.
As far as comic book movies go.
Right, yeah, and it's going to be interesting to see it because people have always associated Joker with more of the somebody who, I mean, we'll get into this a little later, but someone who is mainly his relationships with Batman. So it's kind of
Right,
like, well, what's the point of a Joker movie without Batman? But I'm
right,
like, well, I think it's a different type, is a different take on it, where it's like it's not that he's created because of Batman or to create to fight Batman. He's created because, I guess in this version, this sort of rotten, corrupt society sort of turns him into that. Is
right,
what sort of
right,
implied to
right,
me,
right,
or the circumstances that he's brought into, given all the tragedy that he seems to have to be going through. So it's one thing I will say is that I do like the sort of reimagining of the look because it's very different
yeah, yeah,
from the
yeah,
comics,
yeah,
but
yeah.
it's not a repeat of any of the other takes on it.
That's
It's
true. It's
not.
its own thing.
Yeah.
It looks more like a card, like a deck of cards, right?
Yeah.
Right.
It does. The closest I can think of, there's a comic called Batman: The Dark Prince Charming or something like that. It actually does have the sort of eye diamond things that Joaquin's Joker has. So I think if you're going to reimagine the Joker's look, it should look something like that. It should be something a little bit more clown-like, and you let the performance sort of carry the creepiness of it, because that's what makes him honestly look creepy. Isn't necessarily the makeup. It's what's behind him. It's the eyes.
Right.
um, it's the way he carries himself with that makes it look just completely scary. And to be honest, I mean, this may be controversial, but I honestly like it better than what they gave Heath.
Really,
in the Dark
really.
movie because of the fact that I always felt is I mean people didn't like that I said it at the time, but I'm just like I didn't care for the scarred smile and just the ugliness. It was not. I like a neat Joker
Right.
because of the fact that he is a character who is partially because he's a character who's vain and
Yeah.
theatrical, and so if he were to put on makeup, I don't think he would let it be a mess like that. In my version of this, I get that that was Nolan's version, and obviously Heath is one of the greats when it comes to the character. But my issue overall was that like it gets a little on the nose if he's an already scarred looking ugly guy
Right.
versus a guy who just has regular clown makeup and you let the performance carry it. Now, of course, Ledger had a great performance. I'm not taking anything away from that, but I do wish at the time I think I was hoping for something that was actually a little closer to what we see with Joaquin's in terms of reimagining it. Of like, okay, if you do have a Joker who puts on makeup like that, I prefer this type of angle. So it's kind of cool, like 11 years later, for me to actually see what I had hoped for back then. It just came a little later and with a completely different actor and a completely different take. But that's sort of my idea, and that's why I prefer this look over obviously the Cameron Monaghan version of Joker that we saw in Gotham, because that's another like ugly looking scarred dude sort of thing.
Right.
But I mean, again, this is a character that's attracted a lot of talent. That's had a ton of great stories to it. So in the grand scheme of things, this is a minor issue for me, at least.
Well, yeah. I mean, we're dealing with like basically the most famous villain of all time.
Hmm.
Fuck. I mean, more than Zod, more than Lex Luthor at this point, more than fucking any of Spider-Man's villains or any like the Joker is obviously like a number one. It makes number
Hmm.
sense. It makes all the sense in the world that he's the first villain to get his own movie.
Hmm.
And it's based on the Alan Moore run, more or less.
It does look like there's some inspiration from the Killing Joke because of the
Yeah,
fact that it does look like he tries to do the stand-up comic route, which
yeah,
is in the comic, and it does seem that they're going with the route of him being a ordinary man who goes through tragic circumstances.
right,
Um, as we go into the Joker origins, you see that there's pretty much two different versions of it. It's either Joker was always a bad dude from the very beginning and just got worse by the time he became Joker, or in the Killing Joke, and I guess in this movie, he was a man who just went through extreme tragedy, and unlike Batman, he used that to corrupt him and gave in to the darkness.
right. And yeah, this is more about him. He starts out more or less, maybe not good, but sort of neutral, and then becomes evil. You
Yeah,
think, seemingly?
yeah, absolutely looks like that. It looks like he may be disturbed or somewhat mentally ill, even in the beginning.
Right, right,
But
right.
he could still be a functional human being in society, and something seems to be causing him to snap that leads him into becoming the Joker. And who knows how this is gonna work, because this movie is set in the 80s. Joaquin is in his 40s, and they did cast a young Bruce Wayne, who I think, is that kid who does he puts his hand through the bars and he makes the kid smile in the
Whoa,
trailer. I think
there
that's
is
the
a young Bruce Wayne in this movie.
that's what they've announced, that they cast him. I don't know. I can't say for sure that that's him in the trailer with the whole thing, but supposedly there is.
I
So
actually
I'm
did not
like,
know that part
okay.
of it either. Okay.
Well, they did announce it, so hopefully that didn't seem like a spoiler. But
No, no, no,
they
no,
did
no.
say
That's
that
fine.
that's
That's
what
fine.
they've got going on. So I'm like, well, if Joker is 40 and there's a kid Bruce, how is this going to work? So I don't know how is it going to be, but I will say, if this is set in 1981 and that kid is like 10, and Matt Reeves' Batman is set in the 90s in like 96 or so, that could be a mid 20s Batman. You see what I'm going with? Like
I
maybe
mean, it's
there
possible,
could
but
be crossover.
they don't know if they want to share these movies or not in a fucking cinematic
I don't know.
universe. You know,
I,
that's the problem.
I'm
Like, dude, fucking
yeah.
Patty Jenkins has said in several interviews that Wonder Woman 84 is not even a sequel to Wonder Woman.
I
You
feel
know,
like that's a bad choice of words. It has to be the sequel to Wonder Woman. It's still got Gal Gadot and Chris Pine in it.
I know. I mean, look, it's you're right. It's a bad choice of words, but maybe she's just playing the DC game or something. But
Mhm.
it's just like now they're in this situation where they're doing good with the solo films, you know,
Mhm.
with Shazam and Aquaman, and hopefully the other ones are going to be good. But you know, like They should at least cross over a Joker with a Batman movie. You know what I'm
I
saying?
mean, I mean, after seeing this, I definitely want to see Joaquin's Joker at least go up to against
Right.
Batman in a movie. It
Right.
doesn't have to be the Ben Affleck version, but I mean, I'd like to see it just because he looks like he gave it his all in this performance, and I'd hate to be it where it's like, oh, it's just a one-off, and he never encounters Batman type
Right.
of thing. I'm not sure how Joaquin feels about it because he seems very much into art house indie type movies, and I'm not sure if he really did this because it was a one-off or if he actually is interested in continuing this character in
I'm
the
sure
future.
he was pitched it that way. I'm sure
Yeah,
he was pitched it like, "Hey, this is Elseworlds," and they explain what Elseworlds was to him.
right.
This is an Elseworlds movie.
Mhm.
Only this is a one shot, and don't worry about it, Joaquin. You're
Right.
not gonna have to do any more of these. Cut to him doing one of the best Jokers of all time, and then and
You
then
want to come back? Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
I
But
mean, he lost a shit ton of weight for this too. I imagine he's probably not going to want to do that again, but who
right,
knows? I mean,
right.
money talks, right?
I mean, he did Gladiator, dude. Like he's done big films. You know, he'll do
Yeah,
them.
yeah,
He'll do them when he likes them. You know, maybe I don't know how he
yeah.
feels about that now. That was like almost 20 years ago at this point, man.
True, true.
15 years
Uh,
ago. But
so,
like, you
see,
know, I would just like them. Hopefully, they cross at least that over. You know, they could have like I don't know, softly connected universe, whatever that means. Like, it doesn't have to
yeah.
connect as much as the MCU does, but
Mhm.
I don't know.
I
I
don't know.
mean, do you think this movie will be kind of like basically a character study, right?
Pretty much, at least from this particular version of it.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
guess the
yeah,
Killing Joke type of Joker origin,
yeah.
and sort of see where did the clown motif come from? Why the purple suit? What turns a man into this sort of thing? I think that's what they're examining.
Exactly, and that's the interesting part. That's why this is what I wanted to talk to you about,
Mhm.
out of many things. But
Yeah,
part of the idea for this is that he's what? How can I say this? Like so sensitive, or he's trying to cover up the tragedies of the world and in his own life with comedy, and they might show it on a smaller scale from what I gather anyway, just my interpretation, where he tries to cover up maybe like having a problem with his girlfriend with going out and doing stand-up comedy. And he sucks at that too, so
essentially. Yeah.
he can't quite cover it up in his life,
Mhm.
but he still keeps trying to cover up all the bad things with with comedy, but then
Mhm.
maybe, you know, he starts to see the comedy in tragedy, and you get, you know, near the end you get the Joker, right? I mean, this is
Essentially, yeah.
kind of like my thinking with all of this.
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, it's there seems to be some influence from Taxi Driver, even probably even more so than the Matt Reeves Batman, because there's shots in this that literally look like they're from Taxi Driver,
Yeah, yeah.
as well as King of Comedy, which is about a guy who is an aspiring stand-up comic who
Right.
gets sort of more and more corrupted. I don't know if you've seen that, but it's interesting that Robert De Niro was the main lead in that, and that's about a guy who's obsessed with a talk show host.
Right.
And in this movie, as you saw from the trailer, Robert De Niro is playing a talk show host.
Right.
So there's some connection there. If you want, check it out it's on Amazon Prime, King of Comedy. I'm sure there's going to be differences, or whatever. You can't just, plug in the Joker and say like, okay,
Right.
this is a remake of King of Comedy, but it is dark in a way of having a commentary on how we treat, I guess, how we treat people, how we treat celebrities, and the sort of obsession that comes with that. So, and Joker, of course, is an obsessive character. The person he's obsessed with isn't necessarily around yet, but I mean, who knows? We'll see what the original obsession started out as.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, are there any other like major Joker origins other than like what was written in The Killing Joke?
Well, it's funny you ask.
Segue time, baby.
It's only that. Yeah. So here's what I wanted to talk about as well, from this movie, because when this movie was announced, so many people were just like, the Joker shouldn't have an origin. It should be mysterious and things like that. And to be honest, I've heard that for the last 10 years, and I think that that is complete bullshit because of the fact that there are several origin stories of the Joker. There are probably arguably more versions of Joker's origin than there are of Batman's, and they're a lot more consistent than some of the other villains.
Right.
Everybody sort of points to, like, okay, you could say he's the dude who dropped into the vat of chemicals, but the vat of chemicals origin is more consistent with Joker's origins than, say, Catwoman's origins, Penguin's origins, Riddler's origins. Like, those guys all have different origin stories whenever they get adapted into something. But for some reason, whenever it's Joker, there's something to do with the chemicals, there's like something to do with obsession with Batman. There's usually ties and stuff. But there's enough versions of it that I can count down my top 10 Joker origin stories, and that's what we're going to jump into now.
Holy shit! Okay.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
I want to. Now I'm going to bring up the only one I'm going to bring up that's not in the top 10 is the very original one. Joker was introduced in 1940, Batman #1 by Bill Finger. In 1951, there was a story called The Man Behind the Red Hood, and that's what sort of created the Red Hood origin, where it's like a guy with a red, like, pill-looking helmet around his head and jumped into a vat of chemicals to escape from Batman. And at the end, it's revealed that his identity turned out to be a guy who turned into the Joker.
Okay.
So a lot of people are just like, yeah, but that wasn't around the 1940s version. It wasn't part of the original vision. And my argument to that is, look who wrote The Man Behind the Red Hood. It was Bill Finger again.
Oh, shit. Yeah, right.
So the guy who wrote the first Joker story also wrote the Joker origin story in the first place. So that's my argument. Like, sure, maybe he didn't originally put him in there for that reason, but it's the guy fucking wrote it into canon. You can't really dispute that.
Right.
You know? So it didn't make my top 10 just because it didn't really dive that much into motivations or much depth to it. The story actually takes place in present day, and Batman is teaching a whole bunch of college kids and using the Red Hood case as an example of detective work, and it just happens to have the Joker in the last page. So that's why I didn't quite make it in his top 10, but it does get an honorable mention.
Okay.
So number 10 goes to I'm going to have to explain this one. Detective Comics number 27. Now you're probably wondering, that's the first Batman story. How can that be? That was before Joker even existed. But in the first Batman story, Batman punches the main villain into a vat of chemicals and says, "A fitting end for his kind."
Oh, shit. They have the prejudice going on even at that time. His kind, like, Batman is so prejudiced to criminals.
These poor criminals.
It's totally there, man. Even
now,
then.
the villain was some fat dude named Alfred Stryker. Funny enough, the first Batman villain was named Alfred. Alfred Stryker, he was a fat dude who was trying to kill off his business partners in order to take over the Apex Chemical Corporation. So funny enough, it ends with him dumping this guy into the vat of chemicals. And it wasn't until a few years ago they did a retelling of Detective Comics number 27 when they renumbered all the Detective Comics. Right. So there was a new Detective Comics number 27, and they decided to retell it. And the writer was Brad Meltzer, and he retied it. Except the guy's name was Albie Stryker, and Albie, is a thin dude with a purple suit.
Okay.
Trying to kill off his business partners, and sure enough, just like in the original Golden Age version, he falls into the vat of chemicals. This version is not Batman who deliberately pushes him in, because this Batman doesn't fucking kill people. If you want another discussion on that, we have the last episode to talk about that. But anyway, Albie Stryker falls into the vat of chemicals, and at the end, the last panel is a hand coming out of the vat of chemicals, indicating that Stryker is going to become the Joker. So I like it because it ties into the very first Batman story of all time. The reason why it's down to number 10 is because it's kind of anticlimactic. Joker was a dude who tried to kill off his business partners and couldn't get his business. Like, it just seems kind of anticlimactic. But I like the conceit that it's tied into the first Batman story. So that's why it makes number 10. Number 9 goes to Gotham. For the Jeremiah Valeska version. The showrunners for that were John Steven and Danny Cannon, and they had an interesting concept where for a while there's a character named Jerome Valeska, played by Cameron Monaghan, who seemed like he was a young version of the Joker, terrorizing Gotham and all that, until they introduced his twin brother, Jeremiah.
Of course. Gotham is nuts, man. Gotham is like, we're having fun with this shit.
So Jeremiah Valeska is introduced, and he of course he's in danger. Jerome wants to kill him, but not before we find out Jerome wants to kill both him and Bruce Wayne. So Jeremiah and Bruce become friends in their mutual pain of being victims to this guy, and eventually Jerome gets cornered, and before anything happens, he tells Jim Gordon, "I will outlive you. I am more than a man. I'm an idea. I'm a philosophy, and I will live on." And he commits suicide.
Oh my god.
But he commits suicide by jump. It's honestly the creepiest fucking thing. He jumps off a building and laughs on his way down, and it's pure Joker, except he's dead. So
Okay.
now, well, thing is, before he died, he left a little present for his twin brother, which is this gas that does the insanity. He calls it his insanity gas, and he basically sprays Jeremiah to turn him insane, and says, "You will carry on my legacy." And Jeremiah does this thing from the Killing Joke.
Yeah. Yeah.
While that happens, and so Jeremiah now has the pale skin, and
Okay.
Jeremiah is sort of seen as the smarter twin, and is the one who is sort of indicated to be the Joker, and he I guess it's supposed to hit harder because he was friends with Bruce beforehand, so it's now he's like obsessed with Bruce Wayne, and ends up taking Jim Gordon and Leslie Tompkins and tries to recreate the Wayne murders.
Okay.
In a twisted way, saying like, I was never part of your life when this happened. So the only way for me to connect you to you is for me to kill off your surrogate parents in front of you. Now, of course, he's stopped, and he has a confrontation with Bruce at Ace Chemicals, and he ends up falling into a vat of chemicals and turning into the bald, scarred-looking version that we see in the trailers. So even though we haven't seen the finale yet, I'm putting this at number 9. It is an interesting idea. However, I think it's just way too fucking convoluted. I think the twin concept was hacky. I think
Yeah.
what I described in terms of him being friends with Bruce beforehand was kind of cool, except for the fact that he's only friends with Bruce for one episode.
Okay.
It would have been a lot better if it was a whole season,
Right.
I'm sure. And he just comes across as a copycat of his brother. So I'm like, interesting idea, but execution could have been better. Cameron Monaghan's still a great actor, though, and I'm looking forward to the finale to see if that changes the ranking. Number 8. This may be controversial. Number 8 to me is The Killing Joke.
Okay.
For those who don't know, he's a failed comedian, former lab worker. He's got a pregnant wife, and he decides to turn to crime and join the Red Hood gang in order to provide for her, only for his wife to die, also killing the baby, and he still has to do the crime because the guys have blackmailed him, and then he ends up in the vat of chemicals, and because of this terrible, terrible time that he's had, he snaps and he turns to the Joker. So the reason why this is number 8, I mean, first off, it's kind of cool to be like, okay, he had a tragic origin, just like Batman, that these guys are kind of similar in a way,
Right.
is what Alan Moore was going to say. But I also feel like Alan Moore just went way overboard on this. He's a failed stand-up comedian. He lost his job at the chemical plant. His wife is pregnant, and his wife dies along with the baby, and he still has to do the crime. And I'm like, okay, dude, this is just it feels like it's too much. It always
too
felt
overly dramatic, too overly heavy-handed.
Yeah, it just felt too overly heavy-handed to me, and also I don't get how, like, sure, I can see how it turns him insane, but I don't see how it turned him into a criminal mastermind who can come up with laughing gas and gadgets and elaborate plans.
Right.
I feel like there's a hole that's missing in there, so that's why it's number 8. Number 7, then, to me, is the Jack Nicholson origin in the Batman '89 movie, written by Sam Hamm. So if you've seen the movie, I'm sure if you're listening to this, you have, but he's basically a mobster.
More than likely.
He's basically a mobster who is actually having an affair with his boss's girlfriend. His boss sets him up at Access Chemicals, and the cops corner him, and as well as Batman. And at one point, he tries to shoot Batman, and the bullet glances off of Batman's gauntlet, hitting him in the face, which causes him to spiral down, fall into the vat of chemicals, and I guess the bullet wound causes him to have a permanent smile on his face throughout the rest. So I like this. Is the first one on this list where he was kind of a psychotic since the beginning, is what they're trying to indicate. or whatever. So I like that idea. I like the name Jack Napier. I always thought that was the perfect pre-Joker name. The reason why it's number 7 is that they also tried to tie it into Batman's origin and said that he was the guy who killed Batman's parents, which
Right.
feels kind of coincidental and also means that Joker inevitably has to be at least 20 or 30 years older than Batman.
Right.
Now, keep in mind, he's also 20 to 30 years older as the Joaquin Phoenix Joker if this young Bruce Wayne announcement was
Right.
true.
Right.
So
Right.
I don't know if they're going to do the same thing, but I'm hoping that they do a different take because we've already seen Joker kill Batman's parents in the '89 movie.
Right.
So that's number 7. Number 6 would go to Batman the Animated Series. Slash Mask of the Phantasm because it's the same connected. This one is also Jack Napier. He's also a hitman, but the reason why I consider it different is because this Jack Napier had nothing to do with Bruce's parents getting shot, but he did have a role in Batman's origin in, I think, a more organic way where he was part of the group of mobsters who intimidated Andrea Beaumont's family, causing her to leave. And since she was Bruce's fiance at the time, Bruce realized he couldn't have an ordinary life, and he decided to go back to his original plan of fighting for justice in Gotham and became Batman.
Mm-hmm.
So this version I prefer just because it feels less hokey of a tie, and also it allows Jack Napier to be around the same age as Batman. So that's number 6, and of course he still falls into the vat of chemicals at some point, as indicated in.
Generally, in the comics, the Joker and Batman are about the same age, right?
It feels that way. It's never
Yeah.
really indicated.
Right. Right.
here,
Right.
if they are, but it's rare to see a really old Joker facing a young Batman. So
Right. Right.
I would say they're probably about the same age or so. If not, if Joker could even be a little older. I mean, Heath was younger than Christian Bale.
I didn't even think about that. Yeah, that's true. But
So
they're so on on purpose with their being ambiguous with his origin in that movie, which really worked in that particular storyline. That was really cool.
yeah, I think the makeup kind of covers up the fact. Well, you can't really tell how old this guy is anyway.
Which is awesome. I think that's such a there's a
You know,
lot good obviously in those films. So
yeah, of course.
yeah,
Um, as a disclaimer, none of the origins that he says in The Dark Knight make it to this list because you can't believe that any of those are actually true because they're
Right.
contradictory.
Right.
I didn't really
Right.
include in here. Number 5 goes to a story called Case Study by Paul Dini. Actually, this is Paul Dini's take on it. It's actually very similar to the Jack Napier one, except this version kind of combines with the Red Hood. He's a mobster who sort of finds clever ways to rise up. He tricks this one mobster into thinking, well, he's having just like the Jack Napier one. He's sleeping with this one mob boss's girlfriend, but then he tricks the mob boss into killing her instead of him at one point. And so he takes advantage of the power that he can take, and eventually turns to the Red Hood. Eventually falls into the chemicals. But the added twist is that Paul Dini says in this story that Joker is not actually insane.
Okay.
He's actually a man who's pretending to be insane because he knows he'll land in Arkham and he knows that it'll get him out of everything.
Okay.
So kind of makes it creepier in a way. So I like that idea, and I like sort of combining the Jack Napier Hitman type story with the Red Hood stuff. So that makes my number 5. Number 4 goes to 0 Year by Scott Snyder. That's where the Red Hood gang is actually the gang that terrorizes all of Gotham before Bruce even comes back to Gotham. And he sort of, at one point, goes undercover with them, trying to take them down from the inside. But Red Hood 1 is the leader. And you can clearly see bits and pieces of the psychosis of the Joker in this. And at one point, he ends up killing Bruce's uncle, who turns out to be part of the gang. And Bruce ends up facing off with him as Batman in one of his first nights out, and Red Hood 1 inevitably falls in the vat of chemicals again and becomes the Joker. So I really loved this. To me, it's the best take of the Red Hood. Really cool to sort of make him more of the main villain when Bruce comes back, as opposed to the mobsters. Which, I mean, I get it. I get Carmine Falcone and everything is a standard thing, but Falcone is such a boring villain in comparison to like a pre-Joker Joker,
Right.
So
Right.
that's what I appreciated about that one. Number 3 goes to a story called Lovers and Madmen by Michael Green. where this one is he's a criminal named Jack who is a criminal who is bored because he's too good at his job. He can go in and rob a bank and kill everyone in there and walk out and basically burn the money because it doesn't mean anything to him. Until he sees Batman and he gives him a new sense of purpose, and so he decides to deliberately do stuff in order to bait Batman out. He ends up stabbing Bruce's girlfriend, and Batman, in retaliation, throws a batarang at him that cuts his
Oh
cheeks.
shit! Yeah. Okay, that's
Yeah.
cool.
Which is cool because this story actually came out before The Dark Knight.
Right.
So I don't know if that was an inspiration or just coincidental, or like everybody thought of a scarred smile at the same
So,
time.
Batman caused the smile. Batman put the smile on his face.
Put the smile and causes the scars, and then Batman gets so pissed about this guy causing chaos and stuff that he ends up allying himself with the mob to like take care of him until he realizes that's a grave mistake, and he goes to the chemical plant where he's being tortured and realizes I can't go back on that vow no matter how terrible this guy is.
Right.
Of course, once he gets there, Jack has already killed all the mobsters who were trying to torture him. But the last surviving mobster ends up shooting something that causes a chemical vat to dump onto him, which apparently also contains antidepressants and shit like that. So this guy gets washed through the pipes and everything and comes out as the Joker, except this time he and Batman already kind of have this pre-established history. Batman knows that he was Jack beforehand, and they have their own sort of fight. So I love the character. I feel like this is one of the best characterizations of a like evil pre-Joker Joker. You can see shades of it there, but he's not quite there yet. And this version of Batman is like not quite established yet. He's still still learning in his early days, and he's overconfident. He thinks he's got everything down, and the mob's going down, and he encounters this guy. So they both sort of equally feed into each other's evolution in the story. So I think it's an underrated story. It's hard to find the collection of this anymore. I had to buy each issue on Comixology in order to reread this one, but I think it's an underrated story. So I've gone through almost all the comic book versions, so you must be wondering what's on the top two at this point.
right.
Because these are some great Joker origins that I'm going through. But to me, the top two actually go to the same source, which is the Telltale Games did a version of Batman that was very much that twisted a lot of the canon around. In the first season, you find out that Thomas Wayne was Carmine Falcone's partner. And you're like, okay, that's weird. And he would turn anybody who went against them. He used a serum to turn them insane and throw them into Arkham Asylum. Two of those people were Oswald Cobblepot's parents. So Penguin's Revenge of Batman ends up throwing Bruce into Arkham, and when Bruce is in Arkham, he gets attacked by inmates who are blaming him for his father's sins. But he gets some help in this fight, and another inmate helps him out. And when Bruce is on the ground, he hears, "Are you okay?" And he looks up, and it's a man with white skin and green hair who wants to befriend him.
No shit.
And they don't know where he came from. He's always been in Arkham since the doctors and staff have been there. They don't know his name, so they just call him John Doe. And Bruce becomes friends with John, and John feels like he's relatively harmless. In fact, he actually helps Bruce escape from Arkham in the first season. But says that he hopes that Bruce will return the favor someday. And at the end of the first season, it's revealed that John is out of Arkham, which leads into season 2, and this is where the real Joker origin comes in. Bruce realizes that there's a gang called the Pact that is terrorizing Gotham, and he has to go undercover on behalf of Amanda Waller, actually, to go after them. And the gang leader is a woman named Harley Quinn.
Of course.
And we have to go undercover, and Harley Quinn's lackey turns out to be John.
Okay.
And he's in love with Harley. Now, this is a huge twist on the fucking canon.
That's
you're
cool,
like, okay,
though. I like that.
this is weird. Right. And John is also super friendly and everything. He has a whole therapy group for former inmates of Arkham to help him out and everything. And he seems to idolize Bruce, and he meets Batman at one point, and he idolizes Batman. He's like, "Can I get a Batarang? Can I help you out?" and
Right.
everything. And you just know as you're playing this, I'm like, I don't know if I can trust this guy because this is going to be the fucking Joker, right? Um, Eventually, shit goes down. I want to like skim through this. I don't want to give too many spoilers, but this is a Joker origin. But the shit goes down with the gang, and Bruce walks in and finds that John Doe is surrounded by bodies of Amanda Waller's agents, and he claims that he killed all of them in self-defense. But there's certain stuff that doesn't add up. So Bruce is like, what did you do? And John tries to tell him, and John's like, do you believe me? Now, there's two
Mm-hmm.
ways to go. If you don't believe him, that leads into the final episode being a pure Batman versus Joker story because John Doe feels betrayed by
Mm.
Bruce. That you used me. I know you went undercover for that, and I know that you're Batman.
Mm-hmm.
And which is another twist on fucking canon. And I think you're a hypocrite, and I think everything you stand for is a joke.
Mm.
So that's what creates the Joker. It's not like he already has the white skin and the green hair and everything like that. But it wasn't until he felt betrayed by Bruce Wayne that he actually decides, you know what? You stand for all these things, and I'm going to stand for everything that's the opposite. And it sort of culminates into a fight, not between Batman and Joker, but actually Bruce and Joker. And he tells Bruce, "I'm the villain of your dreams now," and
Uh,
everything now is beautiful. And that therapy group that he was forming for Arkham inmates, those become his henchmen, which
okay.
actually gives explanation for why Joker has henchmen. Like it's actually like covers one of those whole plot holes that I always thought was weird. That's actually in there. So that goes to number two. Number one is if you decide that you believe John at the end of episode 4, because then John decides to become a vigilante just like you and help find crime.
Oh shit.
So he shows up and he has a costume for himself, with a purple suit and everything, and he's like, "I'm your new partner. Call me Joker." And he wants to help Bruce fight crime. And Joker ends up being a weird partner for him because he goes a little too far, and he
Okay.
wants, in terms of justice, he's like, "Why don't you just kill them?" sort of thing. Um, and he wants to go after Amanda Waller because he feels that, because Waller had tried to kill him in the past, and everything. And Batman's like, "You can't kill Waller." And that's where the big disagreement happens. And where does the disagreement happen? But the Ace Chemical Factory.
Mm.
Now, unlike the previous origins, he doesn't take a dump in there because he's already he doesn't fall into there is what I mean. But because he already has the white skin. But this is where the betrayal happens, where he's like, "I can't believe that you would protect someone like this. I thought you stood for justice, but I guess justice is a joke to you."
Right.
And all Amanda Waller's agents come in, and he just brutally murders all of them. And this is the first time you actually see him like kill.
Mm.
And Batman's trying to plead with him. He says, "John," and then John turns around and he says, "Call me Joker."
Mm.
And they have their big fight, and it's brutal because these guys used to be partners. These guys used to be friends, and it ends with like Batman has to shove a batarang through his hand to like pin him to a console, and he like electrocutes him, but Joker like stabs him. So these guys are both wounded, and at the very end, Joker laughs and he's like, "I tried to be a hero, but I can't. I can't do that. It's not me. Uh, but I want to know, Bruce, did you ever see me as a friend?" And if you play Telltale games, you get a choice in what you say. You can either say yes or no.
Oh shit.
So there's a soft version where like Batman ends up telling him, "Of course, John, I did care about you. You were my friend." And Joker's response is, "Well, I guess you're a pretty screwed up guy then."
Okay.
The other version is Batman being like, "No, you're never my friend. You're always a criminal. Why would you ever think that?" And you can see the heartbreak on Joker's face for like
Uh.
a split second. And then there's a smile, and he's like, "Enemies it is." And that's it's going to be the standard Batman Joker rivalry from here on out. So that takes my number one spot because it's such a creative take on,
Right.
especially after years and years of this Batman Joker story. It's such a creative take on the whole story that I have to give it to them. It makes the whole rivalry heartbreaking in a way because you kind of want him to be a good guy even though you know he's not going to be.
Right.
So unfortunately, Telltale Games is out of business, so we're not going to see any continuation of that story.
That
But
sucks. I didn't know they were out of business actually.
yeah, So we're never going to see more of that version of the character. But to me, that took a really creative take on the Joker that was kind of the opposite of the Ledger Joker, where the Ledger Joker had like no background and just came in as this force of nature for Batman to deal with, whereas this one kind of came in and was looked like the Joker, but he was very human, and it was just through his relationship with you as Batman that turned him into the Joker, and you couldn't stop it. And it's a weird sort of mix of all the previous origins where he's like he's been Joker from the beginning, but it's still a tragic version of it, and it's honestly quite it blew my mind because I had no idea that anybody could come up with that. And it's the writers in that were I have it written down. It was Megan Thornton, Ross Bealey, and Lauren Mee were the writers on that, and it's just a really creative take, and I love the version. So that's my top 10.
I'm surprised that I know you like the Telltale version, but I didn't know it was going to be number one. That's pretty high praise.
It is high break because I mean, it's such a you realize at some point you sort of get tired of watching the same shit.
Yeah, yeah,
You know?
yeah, yeah.
Or Batman, I don't need to see another story where Batman and Joker are at it, and Batman's like, I want to kill you, but I can't. And Joker's like, kill me, I win, and I'm like, okay, like whatever. But to see these guys as like actual friends or Joker trying wanting to fight crime, and I didn't even go into other twists of canon that the Telltale version has in it, but it's the twists made sense for this version, and I didn't mind it, and it's kind of sad that they can't continue because it's honestly one of my favorites reinventions of the whole canon because of how different it is and how sort of refreshing it was to see a different take that still made sense with the characters.
Is that just PS3 or is it PS4 as well? Do you know?
I don't know off the top of my head. Um,
Okay.
I have to look it up, but those
I'd
are available as well as a lot of the cut scenes are available on YouTube as well.
I'd love to play them on Switch. Actually, I'd like to play that on the go. Personally, it's
Yeah,
just
I mean, hopefully it's available. I don't know if Telltale is going to make it available for anything because they're not around anymore. But hopefully you'll be able to find a copy that will work for whatever your system you got.
dude. If SNK, I know you don't know video games as much as
Yeah.
the rest of us, but anyway, our listeners will understand. If SNK is still pumping out games, Telltale, or they're at least re-releasing games, I think Telltale could at least re-release their games. You know what I'm saying? So there is hope, at least in re-releasing on new systems. And
Mhm.
actually, SNK has a new Samurai Showdown this year, so
Nice.
maybe it's from all the re-release money. I don't know what's happening with that, but
Who
anyway,
knows?
as for me, I'm actually not quite as familiar with all the different origins as you are. I mean, I've been following this all my life, but maybe not
Hmm.
as closely as you have. I have not seen as much as Gotham and stuff as for example, but I forgot that I watched all the Batman animated series back in the day, and I've rewatched
Hmm.
some of them recently. But I forgot that they had a whole origin for Joker in that universe.
Right. I mean, it was basically Mask of the Phantasm showed the mobster backstory, and
Yeah,
then the episode with the Creeper,
yeah, yeah,
as well as
yeah.
the Mad Love one, outright showed that it was the chemical bath.
Oh,
So
right, that's right. Yes, and Mad
and
Love.
then
Yeah,
you kind of have to put different episodes together because it doesn't flat out come out in one episode. There's like like they don't even call him Jack Napier in those episodes. You have to hunt for like one of the episodes where Batman's stuck in Arkham for you to hear that confirmation that he's still Jack Napier in that universe too.
Jack Napier is my first Joker because the
Mhm.
'89 Batman movie. I was not really reading much of anything in '89 because I was 5.
Yeah.
So I mean, maybe books at school, but I was watching that movie. I was probably way too young for it, but like Jack Nicholson Joker, that's like the shot of his hand coming out of the chemicals or whatever. It's
Yes.
you know what I mean, like that shit. I mean, to me, that's still like the Joker. To me,
It was still gold.
it's
Yeah.
still
I mean,
gold. I mean, there,
I grew up thinking Jack Napier was his actual name. I didn't
yeah,
realize that
yeah,
there was this whole
yeah.
other Red Hood business or Alan Moore version until much later.
Most people, I feel like, still don't know that part of it,
Hmm.
um, but yeah, it's such a great incarnation, despite it. Some of the other things that might not be so great about it, and of course, Ledger. Oh my God. I
Hmm.
mean, I'm mainly commenting about the movies right now, but uh, I mean, whenever we heard it was going to be Heath Ledger, I think everybody on the planet was like, "What?" And
Yeah.
then when the trailer came out, at least for me, that did it. I
Yeah.
was like
Absolutely.
sold, like, what is going on with this character?
Hmm.
And then you see the movie, it's like, is this the best thing I've ever seen in my life? I was fucking like, God, dude, that seeing the Heath Ledger Joker in the theater was just fucking mind bending. It was
Yeah.
it
No,
was
you could feel the energy of the audience too,
yeah,
and
yeah.
everything. I think what Ledger doesn't get enough credit for is how funny his Joker actually is.
Right,
Everyone's like, "Oh,
right.
he's so creepy" and things like that. Like, yeah, but he's also hilarious, and that's
Right,
what
right.
I was kind of worried going in that they wouldn't have that element. But that's definitely what puts him at one of the top
The
Jokers.
pencil
Is
trick or him
yeah,
like putting like throwing that the money in front of that guy's face like what was it like he's
oh, when he
the
burns the money,
pile of money, there was something funny there I think, and then the fucking nurse
I'm only
outfit,
burning my half. Yeah.
classic. That nurse outfit is fucking classic, dude. I mean,
Mm.
Grant Morrison said something about he wanted to take a little bit of credit for that because he was the first guy to have Joker cross dress, which was in Arkham Asylum wearing the fucking
Yeah, he's wearing the high heels, but I mean,
and
Nolan
he's
went
got
over
the
the top.
Madonna bra, right? The pointy
Uh,
pointy bra.
wanted that in the comic, but I don't think you ever see it.
Mm.
It's in the script. I've read the script for Arkham Asylum, but I don't think I've ever been able to find it in the. Because believe me, I looked when in the script. I'm just like, he's wearing a bra. What the fuck? And then I went through the comic, but I couldn't find it. They
But
mainly just kept it to the trench coat.
Morrison had that idea in his script, though, probably
Yeah,
first.
yeah, he did.
I
Yeah, no,
mean,
Morrison had a bunch of ideas that Ledger definitely read when
uh-huh.
leading up, because Ledger kept a whole journal for Joker, and there's
He
some
went to like a
crossover.
Motel 8 or some shit and just kept the
Yeah,
Joker journal and went fucking nuts.
yeah, and he wrote out stuff that is in the Morrison version, and there's even a line from the Clown from Hell or something. I think that was called. It's been a while since I read it, but he does flat out say something along the lines of like, um, you won't kill me out of some misplaced sense of morality, and I won't kill you because you're just too much fun.
Right, right,
From the
right.
Dark Knight, which they rephrased it in the movie, but I remember hearing that in the theater. I'm like, damn, they got that from that issue. That's deep cuts,
Right,
but
right, right.
it's in there. Hello.
Your cat
Cat.
made a special appearance. My cat does that too
The
sometimes.
other cat Nathan who showed up last time. This one is in this one. Hello.
Oh man.
So
Well, I don't have the song playing for us right now, but I'm going to add it in the post for the podcast version. But anyway, this is Andrew, and this is Superhouse Live. We're on YouTube and Twitch and a bunch of different streaming services, as well as we're actual podcast too. There's a podcast version of this. I know it's not the simplest thing in the world, but you know, we're out here trying to spread out this podcast or this live stream as much as possible. So we're putting it on every kind of outlet that we can think of. And we're on all the social media, Instagram, Facebook, all that. Just search for us. You'll find us. Search for Superhouse. And the most important one being Patreon. Patreon.com/Superhouse Podcast. Our lowest donation tier is $1. And you have any plugs there, Ben?
not that I can think of. I look forward to talking more about Shazam and more about Joker when we see more stuff.
Yeah, that's going to release in October, so
Yep,
and then we'll see more trailers and shit as well.
of course.
But yeah, the next episode will more than likely be our coverage of Shazam, our review of it. We might be maybe a week late on that one, but I think that'll be fine.
Yep.
So anyway, this is Andrew signing off.
This is Ben signing off.